Hi everyone, and a happy Monday to you. Last week I was working on this kitchen table, and actually it's been the last couple of weeks, and I've been putting a hemp oil top coat on it. So as I was showing photographs on our Instagram stories of the oil saturating the finish, I had run a survey and asked if you would be interested in a video about how hemp oil works, and 98% of you said yes. So without further ado, here is your video about hemp oil. However, I feel like when we talk about hemp oil top coats, we need to talk about top coats in general. So I'm going to show you the 3 most common top coats, why I would use them and when I would use them, and how I differ from one to the other. So the first and the most common top coat, and by common I mean I think it's the one that people hear about the most, are liquid top coats, like a lacquer or a shellac or a varnish or a polyurethane. This is the anti-slone lacquer. Miss Mustard Seed has a tough coat as well that's a liquid top coat. And liquid top coats go on a wood finish or a paint finish, and it dries. You roll it on wet, or you can brush it on wet, and it dries, and it's a really hard finish. So when you put it on there, your surface is pretty hard. It seals it from the outside in, and then you have a nice scrubbable finish, something that's going to withstand a lot of movement and a lot of brushing and rubbing. However, the downside to a liquid top coat like a shellac or lacquer or varnish is that if and when it gets chipped or it gets scratched, and it's going to happen, that's kind of an inevitability of furniture pieces and cabinetry and tables and things like that. When it gets scratched or chipped, there's really no easy way to repair it. The only way to fix it is to sand it smooth, repaint or stain or do your finish, whatever your finish is, redo that finish, and then reseal it with your liquid top coat. So I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to choose a liquid top coat for my surface. Even things like kitchen cabinets that really do withstand a hard surface well, I like a finish that's going to be a lot more repairable down the road. So that's a liquid. The other top coat, and the one that I use most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, is going to be your wax finish. So Miss Mustard Seed and Annie Sloan both have a wax. Wax comes in different colors. The colors don't change the wax except that it adds the patina that you want. So your clear wax, which is what you're going to use most of the time with all your finishes, is going to give it that protective top coat. You can use your dark wax or your white wax, your brown wax, your black wax, and that's going to give it a protective coat as well, but it's also going to have the added patina of an antique finish or an urban industrial finish, etc., and so on. So wax is a protected top coat that protects from the top in. And the thing that I like most about wax, one, is I like the sheen that it has. I like to describe it as when you put it on there, it shines, but it's not shiny, not like a gloss or satin polyurethane or lacquer is going to be. So I like the sheen that it has. It has a more even looking finish to me, in that it really exaggerates the brush strokes and the texture of the piece that you're working on, and the finish of it looks even, whereas in a liquid top coat, a lot of times you can really see the exaggerated brush marks. So if you put it on too thick or too heavily, it has a tendency to look a little bit on the streaky side. Wax is a correctable and repairable finish, and this is what I like the best about it. So in high traffic areas like kitchen cabinets or children's bedroom furniture, desks, things that you use all the time that are going to show wear and tear much sooner than other pieces, like maybe a side table or a bedroom dresser, the finish is correctable. So if you scratch it or if the paint chips, you can sand it down, repaint that particular area, touch it up, kind of feather your paint in and out, and then re-wax it. And it can be really a spotty kind of touch-up job. You don't have to redo the whole thing. The other thing that I like about wax is that if you stain your finish, let's say you get Crayola markers, or what's another common stain? Scuff marks in shoes is something I have to deal with at home. Berry stains like blueberries and raspberries and strawberries, things that don't really wash out very easily. Most of the time, those stains will get stuck in the wax. So you can get your wax out, get a rag or your brush, put a little wax on it and rub it out, and it will actually rub the stain out of the finish with the wax. So it's a way of cleaning a non-cleanable stain while giving it added protection too. So that's why I like wax the best for 90% of the projects. Alternatively, hemp oil is my other favorite top coat. So unlike lacquer and unlike wax, hemp oil protects from the inside out. So hopefully you can see this table here. And I'm going to point out to you, this table has been oiled about 7 times over the last 2 weeks. The thing with hemp oil is, depending how dry your surface is or how thirsty the wood is, in this case a very thirsty wood, the oil is going to absorb into the finish. The more it absorbs, the drier the wood is and the more it needs that oil base. So you're pouring the oil in, you're rubbing it out, and it's soaking in and building up. So the more it soaks in, the more oil you need. In this case, at about 7 coats, it's finally to the point where the oil's stopping absorbing. So can you see the spotty sections right here? That's oil. Right here, the oil has absorbed. The more it absorbs, the more oil you need, and it builds up oil upon oil upon oil. And what do we know about oil? It's water resistant. Oil and water don't mix. If you put oil and water in a boiling pot, it's going to sit on top of the water. If you put water on an oil finish, the water is going to beat up. And the principles are the same with the tabletop. So on raw wood finishes or stained finishes or dry wood, oil is my favorite top coat because it actually absorbs and protects from the inside out. And you can build up those layers of protection depending on how much it needs, because the wood tells you how much oil it's going to need. The hemp oil like this, the reason I brought both of these out to show you is it comes from the hemp plant. It's all natural. It's a food safe product, so I love it for kitchens, for things like butcher blocks and kitchen tables, because you can continually re-oil that finish, but then an hour later you can eat on it without really having to worry about any contaminants. The oil, because it comes from a plant, different productions of the oil are going to have different colors. It is going to dry in a clear. Once it sets up and hardens, it's going to be clear. So whether you buy oil that has a darker production or one like this, it's a little bit more golden, the color's not going to be any different. So you can mix and match. That's one of the most common questions we get about what's the difference between the colors. So on this table, the reason I like it for kitchen tables and raw wood is it's a really cleanable surface. So I wouldn't want to do a lot of heavy scrubbing, which is true for any paint finish that I do. But when this table gets oiled and when it gets finished and when you're using it every day, you can just use your kitchen spray, your Method brand from Target or your Myers or something that's a little bit more natural, spray it down and use a cloth and wipe it off. In 6 months or in a year or in 2 years, when the table starts to look thirsty, right here it's thirsty, right here it's not. When it starts to look thirsty, you can get your oil out, put a little bit on a rag and just rub it in to freshen it up. And you can do that on any of your wood finishes at home. Another question we get is, can you oil a finish that has a paint finish on it? And the answer to that is yes. However, I would not choose oil on my paint finish if what I'm painting over has a high gloss finish to begin with. So a highly lacquered buffet or a curio cabinet or a dresser, whatever it is that gets painted, if it's shiny to begin with, when you oil it after you paint it, there's nowhere for the oil to go. It's just going to sit on top of that shine. So in that case, it's not an ideal top coat. I would choose wax over oil. So let's say you do your kitchen table. I've got my brush handy. I put, like I said, about 7 coats of oil on this already. This has been soaking overnight. So once I got here this morning, I could see how much more oil it needs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these patches of wet oil right here that you can see, and I'm just going to move them around the surface. And I'm going to allow where it was dry or thirsty. As I move this around, I'm going to let it sit and soak for another few hours. I'll be working, and every time I walk back here to, get a brush or to get some paper towels or whatever I need, every time I walk back here, I'll continue to brush this oil in and to saturate it. So in terms of the time involved in doing an oil finish, you really don't know how much oil your piece is going to take until you start it. In this case, it's taking a lot of oil, so it's taken a couple weeks to get to this point. It's very easy to do, but you have to be a little bit patient. The more patient you are in the process and the more you let your furniture speak to what it needs, the better your results are gonna be. And you're gonna have that awesome, really durable finish that's gonna last a very long time and be fixable down the road. So I hope you found that helpful. Please feel free to ask your questions if I didn't touch on something that you're still wondering about. And always ask your questions when you come in about what the best top coats are for the project that you're working on. We'll let you know why we think they're the best, maybe what some of the other opinions are about that, and then you can decide which one you want to use. So have a great week. I hope you're creative this week, and we'll see you later.